Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Sarah. I want to talk about water, drinking water in particular. Now, the water inside of your body, your cellular water and mitochondrial water, that's a different conversation. We'll talk about that on a different day. But I have been getting a ton of questions about drinking water. So, first thing I want to let you know, I have a drinking water guide that I'm going to have in the pinned comment here on YouTube and also in the show notes. In that water guide will be the links of the things that I talk about here. I'm going to give you a little tour of my kitchen at the end to show you a few of the devices that we have. You'll get the links to all those things there. And I will also include in that guide a playlist of a ton of videos, podcast interviews I've done on water with people all over the world. Dr. Gerald Pollack, who's really the father of studying H3O2, this different phase of water, fascinating information. Veda Austin, Jen Isabel Friend, Dr. Laszlo Boros talking about deuterium depleted water. So all of those videos are in that guide if you want to take this conversation and dive deeper into some of that information. But let's just talk about water and keep it simple for the purpose of this video. So the things that I think people can do that are important for their water. Number one, free. Go to findaspring.org and you can actually harvest your own spring water. Now, I do recommend people test that water just to make sure that it's clean, it's good. There's water testing kits you can get. I have one in the guide. You can find water testing kits on the EWG website as well as Amazon. So I would just test the water just to double check it. I always like checks and balances. I've had people all over the country use this website and they just go and collect their own spring water. It's free. It just takes time and effort. And I know not everyone has that. I personally don't, which is why I've invested in some different devices for my home. So that's just a free option that's out there for people. What I think is important with water is two things I think are crucial. And we could talk about structuring and hydrogen as like bonuses. So purifying is super important. I think most tap water is dirty. If you have well water, I also recommend testing the well water. Some well water is fabulous, but you just want to test it to know what you're dealing with. So purifying is a base step. We used to have a reverse osmosis system, and I just ended up replacing it with a distiller recently. And links to both of those are in that water guide, the ones that I have used. RO was great, but we had to just continually keep replacing these filters over and over again. And then I had read some reports that, you know, the filtering wasn't what it was being touted as. And so it's questionable. Now, I don't question the company. I just, I see things, I read things, I'm curious. So distiller will kill everything. This killed it. So we love our distiller. It's great. If I had to start all over again, I would just get the distiller. I wouldn't do RO, but RO is an option as well. And if you have an RO system, I think it's fine. So that's number one, but you don't want to ever really drink reverse osmosis or distilled water plain. You always want to add minerals back in because if you're drinking a lot of reverse osmosis or distilled, I think is even more dangerous to drink plain because it will wash out the natural minerals in your body. Now, occasionally there will be people that are telling people to do detox or cleanse with distilled water. So it has a time and place. That's not something I'm going to recommend anyone just go out and do, but that's probably what you might have heard about distilled water being drink plain. I recommend always adding minerals. So a few minerals that I recommend are in that water guide. We use Quinton hypertonic. That can be expensive. So an alternative would be making your own Soleil water. There's a link to a recipe in my water guide as well. That's a cost-effective, easy thing to do. We've also just started using some trace minerals in our water, just a couple drops of that. So that's also an option as well. So purify, then add minerals. Now, if you want to structure your water, that's like an extra fun layer. I recommend watching the interviews with Jen Isabel Friend in the water guide and Veda Austin to understand why structuring can be a value and a benefit and all the ins and outs. And there's also a great interview in the water guide with Anna Lemma, the people from Anna Lemma. That was a really, really fun, fantastic episode that talks all about the health benefits of structuring water. Is essentially like adding electrons to your water. So it's very interesting. I really like drinking structured water. Um, Here's the thing, you can do it for free too. So you don't need to necessarily buy an analemma wand, a wand. And that wand is in the guide that I use, but you don't necessarily need that. You can use sunlight, moonlight. You can even use intention. When you watch the videos with Veda Austin, you'll understand this concept of intention a bit more. It took me a while to grasp it. It seemed very woo-woo and not real. Dr. Emoto is another one, but Veda has actually made this work people can replicate it. People have been replicating it all over the world. So that's why I really buy into what she's doing. I think it's fascinating. So structuring, that's a layer on top. And then hydrogen is like adding a little suns into your water. So it's an extra layer is hydrogen. Now, I used to recommend the hydrogen tablets, have been looking at some of the reports on those. Some of them have heavy metals. So I don't necessarily recommend hydrogen tablets for all the time therapeutic use. When you look at the science around hydrogen and therapeutic usage, most of those reports and most of those that data is done on machines like the hydrogen machine. I'll show you when we do a little tour of my kitchen. Does everyone need a hydrogen machine? Certainly not. It's something that I've recently just added into my family because my daughter is struggling with some health issues. And I really always try to do the natural route with her as much as I can. If we have to utilize allopathic medicine, we do. But the research on hydrogen was quite compelling. So I do recommend a specific hydrogen machine that also offers inhalation. And I show you how that works in just a little bit when I give you the tour of my kitchen. Now, a note about the hydrogen machine. You only want to use, I prefer distilled water. We were using reverse osmosis water with our machine, and I found I had to clean it because it was building up like mineral gunk in the bottom. And that's when I started questioning the purity of the reverse osmosis. Even with brand new filters, it was still kind of gunking up the bottom of my hydrogen machine. And I had to clean it more, do a citric acid wash to get those minerals out. So just something to be aware of. And that's when I bought the distiller, was specifically for the hydrogen machine. So when I am drinking the water from the hydrogen machine, it'll go through the hydrogen process, but it's distilled water. So I will always add a couple drops of either trace minerals, Sole, or Quinton hypertonic. I always add minerals back in because it's still devoid of minerals, even though it has hydrogen. If I want to take a moment to stir with my analemma wand or say an intention, again, watch the Veda Austin. I know it sounds totally woo-woo and crazy to talk about intention and water, but if you watch those interviews, I think you might be a little more open to that information. But hydrogen and structuring are different. I have one more system. Now, this was a gift I bought my family because we were having Mountain Valley spring water in glass delivered to the house, which was just a big pain to carry those 5-gallon glass bottles up the stairs. And it just was a constant thing. We were getting deliveries all the time. And so I bought a spring Aqua machine, which I will show you again also in this little tour of my water stuff. And it is structured, purified with minerals added back in, and hydrogen. Now, the hydrogen is not the type of high saturation that you will get with the Holy Hydrogen machine, the Hydrofix. But it is still great. It's still a wonderful tool. We still use that, and you don't need to really add any minerals back in unless you want to. Just for preference sake, I'll still splash a little Quinton in. But that's another thing. It's totally separate. Here's another little side note. So I was adding just the hydrogen water from the Spring Aqua into my hydrogen machine. That was also gunking it up. So if you do make an investment in a hydrogen machine, I personally am going to recommend to also get a distiller. Again, I know that's not going to be in reach for a lot of people, but I just want to answer that as a question I've been getting quite often. Ultimately, I think you can have great health benefits for free using the findaspring.org and looking at some of those waters locally if you're able to get them. I also think you're going to have great health benefits just by drinking purified water with some minerals added back in. I think it's a huge health upgrade over just drinking tap water or bottled water that's been sitting in plastic. Anything that's been sitting in plastic, I do not recommend. you're going to be picking up a lot of those chemicals in your water, and I don't recommend that. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to jump now into the end of this video to just giving you a quick little tour to see these different things in my kitchen, how they work. I apologize, the sound quality and lighting and all of that is not the best, but hopefully it gives you just a little idea of how these things work. This is our water distiller. As you can see, it's pretty simple to use. It's going right now, but you pretty much just pull this guy out. It's going, so I'm not gonna do it. Pop it back in, hit the start. Well, obviously you have to fill it up with water, and then it makes water. But this has been a really good thing, and you do need to clean it about once a month to clean all the minerals out of the tank. And there is one little filter up here that you change, but not very often, and it's really inexpensive. These are the carbon filters. We actually haven't changed ours yet because you change this little filter once every 3 months. So, and they're very inexpensive. You can find it on the website, but they're extremely inexpensive to change and easy. This is the Holy Hydrogen machine. It is just making, it's actually on standby mode right now. It's made the hydrogen water and it's on standby. This is how it looks when it's just sitting as a pitcher. And this is what it looks like when you attach. It's got a separate little lid, so you take these two off, attach the little breathing tube here. That's where you breathe it. As you can see, it is making the hydrogen gas so that you can inhale it, but this is what it looks like to use inhalation. This is the spring Aqua system. On this side is mineralized and structured. On this side is hydrogen and structured, but it's not going to be the same concentration as the hydrogen machine, but you just simply bring both down and you've got structured, filtered mineral water right out of the tap. The filters have to be changed probably about every 18 months or so. All right, I hope that was super helpful. Just as a reminder, pick up my water guide in the pinned link in the comments for the links to everything. And I hope this was helpful. Leave the video a like, a comment if it was. And remember, you can do this for pretty low cost. You don't necessarily need all these gadgets. These are things I have added over the years. I was able to improve my health immensely using free things: sunlight, grounding, circadian rhythm work. So don't get discouraged if you look at some of these gadgets and you're like, I can't, this is not on my budget right now. You can still heal without all of these things. So don't let it be a source of stress for you. I just created this video because of the amount of questions that I have recently been getting on this topic, and I hope it was helpful. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.